Hey everyone, thanks so much for stopping by. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy.
A New Adventure by kfpisnotacult. 4 years after becoming the Pirate King, Luffy thinks his adventure is over, until Vegapunk appears with an impossible offer. A journey beyond their world, into a twisted timeline where fate has changed. Without hesitation, Luffy sails again, taking the Straw Hats into a new dimension where past and future collide, and family means everything. Disclaimer: this story do not belong to me. The author is A New Adventure by kfpisnotacult. Respect to author.
Chapter 1, The Experiment. Oi, Vegapunk. Luffy, now around 28 years old, barged into the oversized laboratory with his crew beside him. Out of nowhere, the Pirate King and his crew received a request to go to Vegapunk's lab. The Straw Hat Pirates owed Vegapunk a favor for switching sides during the final battle for Raftel and turning the Marines' most advanced technology 4 years prior, and it seems that he chose now to cash it in. What do you want this time? Ah, it's good that all of you are here, Vegapunk said, turning around from the machine he was tinkering with. He examined the crew with trained eyes as they filed into a line to face him. Luffy hadn't changed much since the final battle. He wore the same vest, exposing the X-shaped scar on his chest and blue shorts. Ever since Shanks had died in the final battle of Raftel, Luffy had decided to continue wearing his straw hat to carry out his legacy, and Rogers before him. Zoro had decided to emulate his past in the clothes that he wore, opting for his dark green bandana, a white shirt, and dark brown cargo pants. His left eye had long since been opened after controlling the curse, but the scar had yet to show any signs of healing. He had 3 swords strapped to his side: his precious Wado Ikimonji, the fabled blade Shisui, and the infamous Shodai Kidetsu, in which he claimed off one of the Gorosei. On top of that, he had 3 swords on his back as well. He only used these swords for emergencies, but he always kept them on his person. 2 katanas, one with a red hilt and one with a blue hilt, were crossed on his back. These swords were called Umi no Naomi, Bane of the Sea, and Akuma no Handen, Devil's Judgment, 2 swords that were found among the many treasures of Raftel. Sheathed down the center of his back was Yuru, which Zoro had taken after defeating his mentor, vowing to carry on his legacy as the greatest swordsman. Nami hadn't changed much at all, still opting for the bikini and skinny jeans. She wielded an all-new Kleem attack, though, and although it didn't look as visually appealing as Zoro's swords, it had a lot of tricks up its sleeves. Usopp stood proudly, donning a black tank top and his father's starred cape, which was given to him shortly after Luffy claimed Raftel. His trusty slingshot was at his side, along with many small pouches, in which lead to many carefully organized types of ammunition. Sanji took a drag out of his cigarette with a bored expression on his face. He decided that he liked his current hairstyle, refusing to style his hair in the ridiculous fashion of his family. He wore a simple black tuxedo, though his shoes were specially designed by Usopp and Frankie to enhance the heat of his techniques and facilitating his skywalk skill. After Chopper had achieved his dreams, he had a small suit inspired by his surrogate father, Dr. Hiralik, although he managed to his late father's hat on his head. Other than that, Chopper decided there was no other need to change his appearance. Like Nami, Robin had not changed much over the years. Although her clothing stayed the same, she had decided to try tying her hair up in a ponytail. Frankie wore his old hairstyle with pride. He still wore his Speedo and Hawaiian shirt. His shoulder plates and arms were now painted black and gold to signify his super upgrade since finding long-lost technologies from the Void Century in Raftel. Brook wore his standard suit and tie, a small hat on his afro. He wielded a new cane, a sturdy, brown cane with a straight handle instead of a curved one, allowing for him to wield the rapier within with more comfort and accuracy. Vegapunk was slightly shocked to see that even Jimbei showed up. The fishman had been working on interspecies communications with humans and fishmen ever since Luffy had become Pirate King. Jimbei now wore a red garb, a garb now only worn by the royal advisor of the Empire. I've been working on a new machine, the aged scientist gestured towards the hulking machine behind him. Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper's eyes turned into stars, but Vegapunk decided to continue on before any of them could get any ideas. And I wanted to use you all as live test subjects. Why us? Sanji asked quizzically, exhaling smoke as he talked. Couldn't you just get some random person to do it? Because this will benefit the both of us. Vegapunk fought the urge to gag at the secondhand smoke as he stared down the crew. You all have achieved your dreams and sailed all corners of the ocean. This machine is a gateway to another dimension, one potentially unexplored by man. A new sea just waiting to be sailed. Whoa! Luffy exclaimed, all of the words flying over his head except for the last sentence. That's awesome, Vegapunk. When can we go? Are you sure you want to do this, Luffy? Nami asked, being the oh-so-valued level-headed crewmate. Luffy stopped and turned to his crew, thinking before a little bit before a bright grin appeared on his face. Honestly, I appreciate you all following me through my dream. For the past 4 years, all of you have returned to your own lives, or have made your own, but right now there is an opportunity for a new adventure. Luffy extended his open palm before gripping it shut. I won't make any of you come with me. The decision is yours, but if you want to sail with me once more, then feel free to join me. Well, you are the captain, Zoro chuckled to himself. What kind of first mate would I be if I abandoned my captain here? Why not? Nami shrugged and twirled her staff. After having all this money for so long, I can't help but feel like I want to start something new. As a brave warrior of the sea, I cannot turn down this challenge. Usopp declared. Not even this new dimension can best the mighty Usopp. You'll all be dead from scurvy 3 weeks in if I didn't come along, Sanji scoffed, smiling at his captain. Ah, to hell with it. I'll come, but only because Nami Swan is too. Luffy, thanks to you, I achieved my dream of becoming the world's greatest doctor, Chopper said, looking down for a moment before meeting his captain's eyes with a fierce determination. I owe you everything. I will come along with you on this journey. I wonder what kind of things I can discover in this new dimension. Robin smiled to herself, thinking of the possibilities. I can't pass up an opportunity like this. This new dimension thing is no match for the super cyborg Frankie. Frankie exclaimed, busting his signature pose. Bring it on. It would be an honor to continue traveling with you, Luffy-san. Brook put a hand to his ribcage and looked at Luffy with sincere eye sockets. The excitement of a new adventure makes my heart pound with excitement. Except I don't have a heart. Yo-ho-ho-ho-ho. I would love to go, Jinbei said, looking to the floor with a serious expression. But I cannot. There is still much work to be done on Fishman Island and I cannot just abandon them. It's okay, Jinbei, Luffy smiled at his comrade. I understand that you have responsibilities now. I hope that one day we will meet again. Jinbei nodded, the smile returning on the fishman's face as Luffy turned to meet Vegapunk. What do we do? First of all, you all need to prepare, Vegapunk said, showing an index finger. I'm not too sure if we can even bring you back, so bring everything you need and say your final goodbyes. I'm not too sure what kind of dimension this machine will lead to. It can be anything from just a trip to the past to a place where ninjas can run up walls and breathe fire. Do that and come back here in 3 days, and then we will continue. The Straw Hat Pirates nodded and left the building, leaving Vegapunk to his own thoughts. Ace, Shanks, Sabo, I'm back. Luffy sat down by the 3 graves which were side by side from each other. Shanks sacrificed himself in the battle against Blackbeard, giving Luffy the opening he needed to finish off the pirate at the cost of his life. Sabo had died taking a hit for Koala when the revolutionaries finally waged war on the Celestial Dragons. Luffy was there and like his brother Ace, Sabo had died in his arms. I'm not sure if I'll ever see you all again, but I hope you're watching over me, Luffy smiled as he sat there in silence for a moment. After a while he got up and used Skywalk to find his way to Dawn Island. He landed by his old treehouse where he, Ace, and Sabo used to live. He entered the small house and smiled sadly as he laid eyes on a fairly large sack. After a moment of hesitation, he reached out to grab the bag. Zoro poured 2 cups of sake, placing one down at Kuina's grave. I already achieved our dream, but I have been offered to go to a new, faraway place, he said, downing the alcohol. I swear to you, I'll become the best swordsman in that world too. Nami walked out of Kokoyashi town, eagerly counting the money she had just stolen from the villagers. Even though she was heading somewhere new, it didn't hurt to go out with a bang. Kaya, Usopp sat down by her grave. Even though she had gotten better before he left, the illness had only worsened as Usopp continued his journey. By the time he came back, she was already long gone. I've been asked to go to a faraway place. I know you'll be there with me the whole way, and I'll be sure to tell you all the amazing stories of the amazing Usopp as we go. Usopp sniffled and wiped his eyes before standing up and heading to his cabin to restock. Sanji walked out of the new Barati, fighting back tears. He was leaving his restaurant behind for good this time, all for the sake of his captain. Well, and Nami. For Nami Swan and Robin Chan, it was worth it in the pervert's eyes. Chopper stood by his surrogate father's grave. Doctor, I have to go now, Chopper said, choking back sobs as he placed his 2 old hats by the grave. I hope you're proud of me for my decisions and my achievements. I know I am. Robin sighed as she looked at her library. She had packed a few of her favorite books, but it wasn't as if she could bring her whole library. "I'm going to miss all of these books," she said to herself before walking out, closing the door behind her. Frankie was at Vegapunk's island. At this point, there was only one who needed his goodbyes. Frankie gingerly placed one of his giant hands on the hull of the Thousand Sunny. "It's a shame I can't take you with us," Frankie said genuinely, lifting his glasses to wipe a tear from his eye. "But I will build another ship to carry on your legacy, Sunny. I swear it. I'm so sorry, Laboon." Brook couldn't help but tear up at the whale's sad cries. "I have found my own family, and I cannot go without them." The whale bellowed again. While still filled with sorrow, Brook could detect the understanding in the sounds the whale made. "Thank you, Laboon," Brook whispered as tears fell from his skull to the floor. "Please, allow me to play one more song for you." As promised, in 3 days' time, the Straw Hat Pirates met up at Vegapunk's lab. The machine had activated, causing a wall of light to appear. "I'm not sure if you will be alone or together when you end up on the other side. As far as I know, you will appear near a person or place your soul resonates with." Luffy nodded. He had handed out a Vivier card to everyone that was time to him. "If we are apart, use the card to find me, and we'll meet together within 3 weeks. We have no idea how big this place is, but it shouldn't be too hard to get across with Skywalk." The crew nodded, causing Vegapunk to smile. "Now go before the lab runs out of power." Luffy smiled as he led his crew into the wall of light, ending a chapter on their lives and starting another. Chapter 02, An Unfamiliar Memory. Luffy fluttered his eyes open to reveal a lush forest. He groggily stands up, looking around to examine his situation. He sighs in relief that the things he packed, which were sealed in a huge bag, not unlike the one Boa Hancock had packed for him all those years ago, were still there. He was still wearing his standard vest and shorts with his straw hat secured comfortably on his head, but he also wore a dark green cape. The cape was a homage to the way his father and the revolutionaries traveled around to hide their identities. Robin was the one who suggested, "What would happen if you decided to fight someone who got on your nerves?" Robin's voice rang in the Pirate King's head as he remembered the short few minutes before they departed. Luffy couldn't deny the fact that even though he was now the Pirate King, his rash nature had not changed at all. Luffy closed his eyes, using his observation haki to see if there was anyone around. It barely took a second for a strong spirit to attract Luffy's attention. Luffy snapped his eyes open as a single thought crossed his mind. Shanks. Luffy shot up, snatching his bag and tossing it over his back in one swift movement before hurtling himself through the forest with blazing speed, hastily flipping the hood over his head. As he burst out of the forest, his eyes widened as the familiar sight of Fuchsia Village flooded the Pirate King's vision. It had only been a few months since Luffy had seen the small town, but he thought that he would never see it again when he left his dimension. Gear. Second. Luffy muttered to himself as he pushed himself towards one of the rooftops with Geppo. He landed on the rooftop, bending his knees to facilitate the activation of the form before launching himself through the villages faster than any normal eye can track. He then skidded to a halt at a port as he saw a Sea King dive towards 2 figures. Luffy recognized Shanks in a younger form of himself in the water. Although it was a bit different than how Luffy remembered it, the fact remained that this was a pivotal moment in Luffy's life. Thinking quickly, Luffy launched a concentrated blast of Conqueror's Haki at the Sea King, causing it to scurry away. Shanks held out his arm, preparing for the Sea King to take his arm. He had already made up his mind to gamble the arm for Luffy's future. The will of D aside, Shanks had taken a liking to the kid, and if Shanks had to sacrifice an arm to teach the young boy a lesson, then so be it. As he stared the Sea King in the eye, as if daring it to take his arm, a wave of Conqueror's Haki shot towards the Sea King, scaring it off. Instinctively looking to the direction of the blast, he saw a hooded man. He looked skinny, but Shanks couldn't determine any of his features, other than a gigantic sack on the man's back. Dragon. Shanks wondered to himself, seeing the color of the cloak. No, it can't be. The hooded man had a much slimmer build than the revolutionary. Dragon also had no reason to come see his son now. Dragon was a busy man, after all. He wouldn't be in the middle of the East Blue for no reason. Questions swirled in his head as he swam towards the shore, Luffy tucked safely in his arms. As Shanks swam towards the surface, the older Luffy's mind was speeding. What should he do? What should he say to Shanks? Should he tell the truth? Luffy stood there, thinking intensely. Thanks for the save, but who are you? Shanks' voice snapped the Pirate King out of his stupor. Luffy looked at his younger self before looking up at the man he saw as his role model. Shanks looked at him with a suspicious look, which was a completely natural reaction. In the East Blue, devil fruits were nothing but a myth, much less a Haki user. Luffy paused for a moment, pondering his response. I'll tell you later. Who I am is not important. Luffy decided to stall a bit so he can think up a better response later. Is the kid okay? Shanks narrowed his eyes at the man before responding. He's fine. He just ate a devil fruit so he wasn't able to swim, he replied. Luffy figured that Shanks was still suspicious, but didn't think of him as a threat for the time being. May I ask which one? Luffy asked. He wanted to know how much Shanks was willing to tell him, even though he already knew the answer. What came next though was something Luffy could not have foreseen. The Mera Mera no Mi. Zoro. Zoro's eyes shot open as a little girl screamed his name. He sat up, examining his surroundings. He was sitting at a counter in a bar, several bottles of empty booze surrounding him. As he turned, his eyes widened. Right there was Kuina, his childhood friend, cradling the corpse of a smaller, younger version of him. Standing before the two of them were a group of bandits giggling and cackling evilly, despite the fact that around 15 of them lay dead. A scene unfolded in Zoro's mind. He remembered a time in his childhood when a pack of bandits tried to steal Kuina's Wado Ichimonji, but Zoro stepped in and defeated the bandits. This time, there were a lot more of them, and it seemed that they had succeeded in killing the younger version of Zoro. You idiot. Kuina's grief-stricken voice forcibly dragged Zoro back into reality as she sobbed over her dead friend. We were supposed to become the best swordsmen in the world. You can't do that if you're dead. That's why you don't mess with adults. What looked to be the leader of the bandits smiled down at Kuina, wiping his blade before raising it above his head. Typical. What intrigued Zoro was the bandit's blade. He noticed the craftsmanship of the weapon and deduced that it was one of the skillful grade weapons. Though there weren't many cutlasses within the ranks of the named blades, there were a few, Roger's blade being a notable entry. Zoro had only seen a couple in his lifetime, but he had yet to see the one the lead bandit was wielding. As the bandit brought down his blade, Zoro dashed in, blocking the blade with his own Wado. Someone like you is unworthy of wielding such a blade. What the fuck did you say? The bandit shouted, swinging his sword at Zoro. With a flash of light, Zoro turned around, his sword halfway in his sheath. As he finished sheathing the sword, slash marks appeared on the remaining bandits' necks and they all fell to the floor, dead. Zoro then looked down before turning around and leaving the bar. Shanks looked on at the distant sea as he slowly sailed away from Dawn Island. A couple days had passed since the incident with the Sea King and he had just left Fuchsia village, placing the straw hat on Luffy's head. He still wondered who the hooded man was. After their brief exchange of words, the hooded man had vanished, seemingly shocked by Shanks' answer. Shanks hadn't seen the man since, but something was tugging at him. He wasn't sure about the man, but something seemed familiar. Was it the way he talked? Shanks sighed and shook his head. That attitude doesn't really suit you, Shanks, the voice of the hooded man said behind Shanks. The Yonko whirled around, swinging his sword in the direction of the voice. He glared at the hooded man before him as the blade clashed with the man's arm, which was coated by armament hockey. The force of the clash caused a shockwave strong enough to cause the sea to ripple beneath the red force. Despite the power of the clash, the hooded man didn't seem strained at all by the powerful attack. No need to keep your guard up, the hooded man said. Shanks didn't miss the hint of familiarity in the hooded man's voice. I'm only here to give you something. What do you want? Shanks growled, still on high alert. The hooded man reached into the back of his cloak with his free hand and pulled out a familiar-looking straw hat, although much more worn and tattered. That's, Shanks' eyes widened as he registered what was before him, lowering his sword. This was the straw hat. His straw hat, but at the same time, it wasn't. It was older, as if it had seen more battles than the one he knew. Yeah, the hooded man moved his hand away from the sword and took off his hood, revealing his identity to be Luffy, albeit a much older one. I kept my promise, Shanks. So you're telling me you're from another dimension? Shanks asked the older Luffy between laughs. And you're the Pirate King. How many times do I have to tell you, it's true? Luffy pouted. They have been going back and forth in Shanks' cabin. Although Shanks wanted to throw a party to celebrate Luffy becoming the Pirate King, Luffy had to stop him. He had something to do. He handed Shanks a folded sheet of paper. I wrote down the main gist of it here. Right now, I have to do something important. What do you need to do? Shanks asked, his eyes narrowing in intrigue as he downed another cup of sake, his smile never leaving his face. I'm sure you'll see it in the news tomorrow, Luffy returned Shanks' smile. Nami counted the money she had swiped from the residents of Kokoyashi village that day, cursing herself for not packing any money. Don't waste space bringing money, they said. Berry will be useless there. Nami had spent the past couple days swiping money from the people of Kokoyashi village while tactfully avoiding Belmere, Nami, and Nojiko. She knew they were in the village, but she wasn't sure if she was emotionally ready to see her adopted mother, along with the younger versions of her and her sister. As she pockets the money, a copy of the news plops in front of her. She looks up, grabbing the paper as she sees a seagull fly away before looking back down at the paper. She sighs. Looks like she is going to have to get used to this way of living. I shouldn't let you back in here after the mess you caused yesterday, the bartender spoke as Zoro took a seat and heaved a sigh. Whatever, old man. Just get me some booze, Zoro said nonchalantly. The bartender grabbed a mug and poured some ale into it. So, did ya hear about the news? The bartender asked as he placed the mug in front of the swordsman. No, I didn't, Zoro replied before downing the entire mug. Refill. TCH, kids these days, the aged bartender muttered under his breath. Well, as the bartender recounted the story, the faintest of smirks crept up Zoro's face. What do you want, squirt? Sanji takes a drag of his cigarette as he flips over a pancake. He found himself back at the orbit and instantly enlisted himself as one of the chefs. It was the only thing he could do to keep himself alive at the moment. He was surprised to see a younger version of himself on the ship as well, but quickly got used to it. Where do you come from? Your cooking is really good, mister. The younger version of Sanji asked, his eyes shining. Apparently, Sanji appearing on the orbit was the most interesting thing to happen for the past few weeks. Nowhere interesting, the older Sanji said as he put the pancake on a plate and handed it to his younger self with a lecherous smile. Go serve this to the lovely lady in red. You're such a pervert. The younger version of himself stuck his tongue out as he took the pancake and left. Of course, the boy had witnessed Sanji's antics and took an instant dislike to it. If only he knew, Sanji thought, chuckling to himself as he made his way towards the sink. As he was walking, something caught his eye. He stopped and turned to see a newspaper. He cracked a smile as he read the headline. I guess some things never change, huh, Captain? And then I let out a roar of flames, inspiring the hearts of thousands of men and scaring the evil witch off, breaking her spell. Usopp shouted, captivating everyone in the bar. He easily fit in with the residents of Syrup Village, his tall tales gathering the interest of many. His younger self took great interest in him, believing every word he said. A less experienced Usopp would make up the tales he told, but Usopp as he was now didn't have to lie. The truth was crazy enough. Amazing, Sogeking. The chibi Usopp exclaimed. Sogeking is the strongest warrior of the sea. Haha, you got that right, Runt, the older Usopp, taking his former moniker, smiled, wiping his long nose. But if you think I'm strong, wait until you see my captain. Right when he was about to go on a story about how Luffy knocked out 50,000 soldiers with nothing more than a glare, a man burst in, waving a bunch of copies of the latest newspaper. As Usopp read the headline, a smile ran across his face. Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Nico Robin was cornered. There were about 10 Marines forming a half circle around her in an alleyway, her back to the wall. She crossed her arms, preparing to use her abilities when she heard several cracks before watching the Marines fall to the floor, revealing a familiar woman. Oh, Alvia. Robin looked at the woman who was the spitting image of her mother. Not quite, the older woman chucked, crossing her arms under her chest. I've been looking for you, Nico Robin. Come on, Frankie. Frankie heard the voice of his old mentor call as he was fixing up a ship. I told you to call me Super Cyborg Frankie. Frankie shouted over. Shut up. No way in hell am I calling you that. Tom snapped back. Frankie smiled as he stood up and walked over to see Tom sitting in a chair, reading the newspaper. What ya reading, old man? The news is quite interesting today, Tom replied, scoffing. Despite the scoff, Frankie could see the large smirk on his face. It's about some kid who. Frankie smiled. Yo-ho-ho-ho. Brook laughed as he had just said another bone-tickling pun. Skull joke. You're going to make me cough up along with all these jokes. Another Brook said. Except I don't have lungs. Yo-ho-ho-ho. You have a great sense of humor, my friend. Rook we're just going to call future Brook Rook to avoid confusion, exclaimed. Now, would you like to sing with me? I thought you would never ask. As the two skeletons were about to break out into song, a newspaper fell from the sky, landing right in between them. Rook walked over and picked up the newspaper, his smile going soft. What is it? Rook asked, curious. My captain, Rook replied, smiling as he looked at the article on the front page. Chapter 03, The Hawk and the Demon. Luffy planted his feet on the ground of Dawn Island not long after he destroyed the execution platform. If he remembered correctly, then he should arrive right about. Ah, shit, Luffy muttered as he felt a strong presence washed over him. He turned his head slightly to face the sea and spotted a Navy ship slowly approaching. Chances are he wasn't noticed, but with his shitty gramps, he can't take chances. He made a break for the woods to bring some distance between them. He needed a plan. He couldn't hide from Garp forever, but he wanted to stay with his younger self. He wanted to help his younger self. As he dived into the woods, an idea started to form in his head. Ha ha ha. Garp's laugh echoed throughout the island as he hopped down from the galleon. It was time to take Luffy up to that hag so he can train to be a great marine. His presence was easy to find, but Garp pinpointed another presence similar to Luffy's but stronger, more distinct. Garp brushed it off as some pirate on the island. Maybe he'll deal with it after he's done with Luffy. Fist of love. Garp dived in towards his grandson, punching him in the face. Ow! Luffy cried out as he was launched towards a wall. Why do you have to hit me every time, shitty Gramps? It's only tough love. Bwahahaha. Garp laughed. Despite hitting his grandson constantly, he did care for the boy. Anyways, let's go. Go where? Luffy asked, tilting his head in confusion. You'll find out. Garp bellowed as he grabbed the boy and dashing off into the forest. Leaving your kid with bandits may not be the best way to raise a marine. As Garp ran through the woods and up the hill, a voice passed him by, causing him to stop. Garp turned to see a hooded man leaning on a tree. Marine. Luffy struggled in Garp's arm. I'm going to be the Pirate King. What the hell did you just say? Garp hit Luffy over the head, completely ignoring the hooded man. I like his spirit, the hooded man said after a few chuckles. Let me take care of him. Garp narrowed his eyes, and that was when he realized who he was facing. The cloak was identical to the man who destroyed the execution platform in Logatown. He dropped Luffy and dashed towards the man, throwing a hook coated in hockey. Why would I want to leave my grandson with a criminal like you? The hooded man caught the punch with a hand coated in hockey, the force causing the winds to spur. Because, the hooded man said calmly as the wind caused the hood of his cloak to fly off his head, revealing a man who looks uncannily like Luffy. He's family. Kuina hit the training dummy she had been attacking for the past few hours. Ever since Zoro had died, she had thrown herself into training. She now had to carry both of their dreams on her shoulders. Damn that idiot. Why did he have to leave her alone? Blood trickled down her hands as she tried to steady herself. She gasped softly as her knees gave out. She fell to one knee, using the practice sword she had been using for support. Damn it. Kuina shouted, tears forming in her eyes. What do I do, Zoro? Rest, first, a voice from behind Kuina caused her to jump. She turned her head to see the swordsman that saved her the day before. Now that she looked at him, he did look like Zoro. He had the same mossy, green hair, the same sharp brown eyes, the same dumb scowl. The rest of his body was covered in a dark green cloak. Kuina vaguely remembered seeing a similar cloak in a newspaper she caught her father, Kushiro, reading. You're not going to make any progress in that state. Why are you here? Kuina asked. The question had a double meaning. Why did this man seek out Kuina? More importantly, why and how did he appear on private property out of thin air? Your sword, the man said after a slight hesitation, seemingly staring into the young lady's soul. Kuina remembered his comment to the bandit leader when he saw his cutlass. Was he going to tell her she's not worthy too? Why? Was it because she was a girl? It wasn't fair. Why do people keep judging based on her gender? You have potential to wield that sword properly. I want to teach you. That statement threw Kuina for a loop. She knew nothing about this man, and she could only assume he knew nothing about her, but he wanted to teach her. First of all, what made this man think he was skilled enough to train her? She was studying under her father, Kushiro, a master swordsman from Wano Kuni of all places. There weren't many people who could top that. Speaking of which, the man walked out into the training field. Kuina, it's been 5 hours. What are you? He cut himself off as he saw the mysterious man. Kushiro's gentle expression turned into a sharp glare. Who are you? His tone came out more of a demand than a question. To the surprise of both Kushiro and his daughter, the man turned and bowed to the man. Kushiro Dono. My name is Asura. I am a wandering ronin who was traveling when I saw your daughter with the Wado Ikimonji and took interest, so I decided to pay a visit. I hope I am not intruding too much. Kuina was about to retort when she stopped herself when the man rose to look at her father. Kushiro's glare did not falter as he rested his hand on the sheath of his sword. What perplexed the girl was the man, Asura as he named himself. He stared back at the master swordsman with a completely calm expression, his hands at his sides. He showed absolutely no hostility. After what felt like hours, Kushiro's expression relaxed slightly, his hand never leaving his sheath. What do you want with us, Asura Dono? I wanted to assist in training your daughter, Asura stated simply, causing Kushiro's hand to falter. A brief pause permeated the training area. I've been looking to take up a pupil for a couple years and I feel like Kuina has the potential to be truly great. There is only one way to know the truth. Kushiro turned around and started walking away. Come, let us speak with our swords. Asura smirked and followed the swordsman. Family? Garp asked, utterly flabbergasted. I don't recall having another son. I'm sure, since your last one turned out great, the man said, causing Garp to flinch. In Garp's eyes, Dragon was the ultimate failure. The complete opposite of a great marine. No, I'm from the other side. You're Dragon's brother-in-law. Garp asked, still shell-shocked. Something like that, the man snickered. Call me Hawks. Okay, Hawks. Garp narrowed his eyes, still suspicious. What do you want to do with Luffy? The exact same thing you are, Hawks replied. I know all about your rival's kid. How much do you know? This was only succeeding in making Garp more suspicious. Just that, Hawks said, shrugging his shoulders. Don't worry, I'll make him into a great marine. Shishishishi. Screw the marines. Luffy shouted from behind Garp. I'm going to become the Pirate King. Fine, Garp grumbled, ignoring his grandson. He could tell that this man wouldn't let up. He'll have to keep a close eye on him, though. He resolved to stop by the island more often. You better keep your promise. Hawks only smile and wink as Garp walks off, grumbling. Hawks sighed with relief as he took out a piece of paper with writing on it and ripping it up. I don't have to worry about this anymore. Stupid planning. My head almost exploded. Mister, are you really going to make me into a marine? Luffy asked the man. Nope. Hawks turned to look at Luffy, smiling and giggling. Just don't tell your grandpa, okay? You're going to become the best pirate king ever. Yeah, Luffy usually never understood adult talk, but when Hawks spoke to him, it seemed easier to understand. It was either that or, best pirate king ever, really resonated with the young boy. I'm going to be the pirate king. You sure are, Hawks said fondly. Let's get to the top of the mountain first, okay. Asura and Kushiro stood about 5 meters away from each other in an open clearing with Kuina as a witness. I thank you for this opportunity, Koshiro Dono, Asura said respectfully. Kuina noted that this man wasn't like most of the ruffians on this island. Certainly not like the ones who killed Zoro. No need to thank me, Asura Dono. Clashing swords is the best way to learn about one another, Kushiro said, bowing. Asura mimicked the movements of the master swordsman before the two drew their swords. That's. Kuina gasped as she saw the blade that Asura donned. The Shodai Kitetsu, Kushiro finished. Even Kuina knew what the Kitetsu blades were. Kushiro had run into the wielder of the Sandai Kitetsu years ago, their cataclysmic duel ending in a draw. I'm sure you're aware of the curse on such a blade. Only those who can quell the killing intent of this cursed blade can wield this blade to its full potential, Asura replied stoically. Rest assured, I shall not aim to kill you. Well said, Kushiro said, dashing towards his opponent. But such thoughts will lead to your death. 360-pound Phoenix. Asura swung his sword, creating a slash in the air and launching itself towards Kushiro. As he parried the attack, Zoro dashed behind him and swung at him. Kushiro cut the air slash and turned to block Asura's attack in one fluid motion. Your swordsmanship is good, but you're holding back. Kushiro launched Zoro back and created several slashes of air. Fine, Asura glared at him, resheathing his sword. Death Lion's Song. With a single slice, he cut all the air slashes that were launched towards him. As he sheathed his sword, Kushiro's sword was sliced in two and a huge gash appeared on Kushiro's chest. I see, Kushiro said, a smile on his face as he fell backwards, his eyes closed. Papa. Kuina ran over to her fallen father. Relax, Asura walked over to his fallen foe and picked him up. Something small like that won't kill your father. Now, let's go back to the dojo so we can patch him up. Chapter 04. Fish out of water. Nami expertly weaved her way through the store, swiping spare wads of cash and wallets. As much as she wanted to haggle her way into buying the store for 50 berry, she was trying to keep a semi-low profile. At least until Arlong arrived. She slipped out of the store, turning left to go back to the small house she had bought out at the edge of the village. As she headed towards her house, she made a turn before a small girl ran into her. Sorry, miss, the little girl chirped. Nami gave the girl one look, her face unreadable. After a second, Nami put a hand on the girl's head. It's okay, Nami smiled sweetly at the girl. It happens. The small girl smiled back and ran off. Chibi Nami ran off into an alley, snickering. That lady was loaded. She excitedly crammed her hands in her pockets, ready to count her spoils. To her mounting horror, she realized that her pockets were empty. Looking for this. Just as she started to panic, a familiar voice rang out from behind her. She turned to see the woman from earlier, not just holding the money she stole from her, but the money that she had stolen from other people previously. "Give that back," Nami shouted, running up to the woman, trying to grab the money. The woman held the money above her head and out of Nami's reach. "Hey, finders keepers," the woman replied, a huge smile on her face. "Please." Nami resorted to the puppy dog eyes she had used so many times to woo the heart of the residents of her village. The woman pocketed the money in her back pocket and knelt down to Nami's eye level. "That won't work on me," she said, causing Nami to look down. "But I will give you something else." "Really?" Nami's eyes lit up. "Yeah, come on." The woman stood up. "I'm going to teach you how to steal better." Nami's eyes shot up. Belmere would never condone this kind of activity. She liked this woman already. "Oh, and by the way," the woman stopped and turned her head to face Nami, a soft smile on her face. "My name's Lammy. Nice to meet you." Belmere was worried. Nami told her she was going to look at clothes, but it had been 4 hours and the sun was starting to set. She made her way to town, frantically looking around. She checked every store, every bar. It was about 15 minutes into her search when she heard the laughter of a woman and a girl. She turned her head to see Nami with an adult woman whose flowing hair was the exact same shade as her adopted child's. "Nami!" Belmere shouted over. Both Nami and the woman looked at Belmere. Nami's eyes shone with excitement, but Belmere didn't miss the pale expression from the woman. She ran over and hugged her daughter. "What were you doing? I was so worried. Lammy and I were running around town. It was so much fun." When Belmere shot the woman, Lammy, as her daughter named her, her face had regained color, but Belmere noticed the emotions flowing through her face. Guilt, sadness. Belmere thought she could read some nostalgia from her face, but the ex-Navy captain chalked it up to seeing things. "That's nice, Nami," Belmere sighed. "Can you go back to the house and help Nojiko with dinner? I need to talk to your new friend for a second." "Okay, Belmere." Nami ran off, waving at the two women. "Bye, Lammy. If looks could kill, Lammy would be dead twice over. I suggest you stay away from me and my daughter from now on." "Yes, ma'am." Lammy looked down guiltily. For a second, Belmere thought that this Lammy woman didn't intend to kidnap her daughter and do unthinkable things, but the woman's actions were too suspicious. Belmere sighed. She felt like she was scolding a child. She scoffed and walked away, leaving Lammy to her own devices. The sound of a gunshot woke Lammy. She woke with a start and immediately reached out with observation hockey. No, she thought, her fear rising. Although she was never able to learn Arlong's particular spirit, she was able to learn Hachi's, along with the fact that fishmen had distinctly different auras to that of humans. She grabbed her Klima-tact and dashed out of her house. Nami watched in mounting horror as the person she distinctly remembered as the storekeeper that she pickpocketed the previous day with Lammy fell over, dead by the gunshot of the giant fishman. Belmere wrapped her arms around her two children, glaring at the fishman. "Anyone else want to speak up?" Arlong sneered. Although the crowd stayed silent, Belmere's glare permeated into the captain of the Arlong pirates. A tense moment passed before he laid eyes on the ex-marine. Arlong scoffed. "You," he moved his gun towards the three. "I don't like your eyes. Give me one of those children. You need to be taught a lesson." "I refuse." The response from Belmere was instant. Nami may have been young, but she wasn't dumb. As she put two and two together, her face paled as she realized the likely solution. Just as the light bulb went off in her head, Arlong fixated the pistol on Belmere's head, a wicked smile forming on his face. Then Thunderbolt tempo. A shout could be heard from behind Arlong as a small thundercloud appeared over Arlong, a bolt of lightning zapping him. Lammy jumps over Arlong, doing a flip before landing between the fishman and his target. "I can't let you hurt anyone else." "You." Arlong stumbled a bit, but stood his ground. Lammy was shocked to see this, as an attack of that caliber would knock out the Arlong she knew, but then it clicked in her head. By the time Luffy had fought Arlong, he had been fattening himself up in the East Blue for years. Right now, he was fresh from the New World and therefore much stronger than she used to know him as. Coming all the way from the New World to terrorize some human Arlong. Lammy pointed her staff at the fishman, who was seething at this point. The shock was wearing off, quickly being replaced by rage at the mere notion that Arlong would try to take her adopted mother away from her again. She honestly couldn't care less if Belmere thought she was some kind of creep, or even if she died fighting Arlong. All she cared about was the safety of Nami, Nojiko, and Belmere. Fisher Tiger is probably rolling in his grave as we speak. "A filthy human like you should not speak his name." Arlong shouted in rage, his eyes all but turning red as he prepared to strike. 3,000 tile true punch. As Arlong attacked Lammy, she coated her Klima-tact with armament hockey. Admittedly, she was nowhere near Zoro's level when it came to using haki with her weapon. She still had a pretty good grasp on it, despite observation haki being her specialty. Due to her attachment to the Klima tact, having used it for years in its many different variations, she has been able to mold her spirit with the staff. If she used any other kind of weapon, she wouldn't be able to use it with haki. Lammy held out her staff, catching Arlong's punch right in the middle of the weapon. "Is that all you got? A haki user?" Belmir watched the two titans clash, the grip on her children only tightening. Belmir remembered her last assignment before retiring. She was stationed on an island in the New World, and although she never learned how to use it herself, she managed to learn quite a bit about the craft. One of those things being a haki user has absolutely no business in the East Blue. That notion only brought up more questions in her head. What did Lammy have to do with Nami? Why would this woman who could go toe-to-toe with a New World pirate just casually approach her daughter? If Lammy wanted to do something to or with the girl, she would have done it the previous day. Also, why would someone so powerful hang her head like a scolded child when Belmir glared at her? From what Belmir learned from the New World, an advanced haki user could kill someone, even if they were as strong as a marine captain with but a single thought. None of it made sense, but that didn't matter right now. All that mattered was that her two daughters were safe. "Murasama!" Arlong roared, shooting a hail of projectiles at Lammy at point blank. Rao and Rod, chain lightning. With a wave of her staff, a black cloud separated the two combatants. As the water projectiles only succeeded to dissolve into the cloud, making it bigger, Belmir could barely register sparks of electricity traveling from one droplet to another, as if creating a pathway to Arlong. As the electricity finally linked with the source of the projectile, Arlong screamed in pain as he was shocked hundreds of times in rapid succession. As that transpired, Lammy launched an egg from her staff, launching itself from the staff, stopping midair above Arlong. "Avenge my mother, Lightning Chan!" Lammy shouted as she swung her staff down. As she did, the egg started to crack. Even though there was no physical contact between the staff and the egg, Belmir knew that the two actions were correlated. Thunder breed tempo. As the egg hatched, a giant black cloud formed, covering the entire island. Lammy gave Arlong a cold expression as the bottom of the clouds started to glow yellow and lightning rained down on the island. Belmir turned her back towards the sky with full intent to withstand any lightning that fell upon them, but all the lightning was focused on a single point, Arlong. Arlong screamed out in pain for what seemed like hours as an endless stream of lightning struck the fishman over and over. Only when the color faded from his eyes did the lightning stop and the clouds disperse. Arlong fell over, dead or unconscious as Lammy fell to her knees. Belmir saw Lammy's lips move as she lowered her head to stare at the floor though was unable to hear it due to the ringing in her ears. After a few moments she stood up again and looked at the fishmen, who stared at the woman with abject terror. "Anyone else want to speak up?" Lammy sneered, obviously mocking her fallen foe, her face contorting in disgust. A couple fishmen walked up to grab their fallen captain as the crew scurried off. She then turned to Belmir and walked over to her. Instead of looking at Lammy with fear, the ex-marine gazed upon her with uncertain eyes. She really couldn't predict what Lammy would say or do, nor could she determine what she was thinking. To practically the entire village's shock, the woman that had just defended the village from the tyrannical fishman who just happened to be a New World pirate bowed before Belmir and her two children. "I'm very sorry for my actions yesterday," Lammy said, sincerity flowing through her voice. "It was not my intention to do anything malicious with Nami. I hope we can start again on a different note." Belmir looked at the woman, pondering her words. If Lammy wasn't there to save her, Nami and Nojiko would have just experienced a very tragic experience. She didn't exactly trust Lammy, but she figured that she at least deserved a chance. Belmir smiled. "I think I would like that." Chapter 05, Blossom. "I don't know," Rook rubbed his bony chin, pacing around the chip. "Rook doesn't have that ring to it that I want." "So, you don't want me to call you Rook?" Rook asked, strumming on one of the many instruments Rook had. "This bass doesn't have that much of a ring to it. In the deeper parts of the Grand Line, there's this wonderful thing called electricity," Rook explained. "You can plug the bass into something called an amplifier, and it'll make the bass louder." "How about bones?" "Yo-ho-ho-ho. That's a wonderful idea," Brooke exclaimed. "That tickles my funny bone." "Yo-ho-ho. Skull pun. Let's stick with that for now," the newly named Bones said. "Tell me more about this crew of yours," Brooke said, setting the bass down in favor of a saxophone. "How am I supposed to play this without lungs?" "Magic," Bones replied with a deadpan. "What do you want me to tell you?" "Did you get to see any panties?" Brooke asked. "A couple times, but I never got to see the ones of my crewmates," Bones said honestly. Tell me about them, Brooke said. Were they sexy? Well, there was Nami, Brooke said. I'll tell you about her another day. She always had a bad temper. Then there was Robin. 20-year-old Nico Robin had found herself in a pickle. She didn't know that the island she landed on was ridden with bounty hunters. After a long chase, she found herself cornered. Devil Child Nico Robin, a bounty hunter, cracked his knuckles, his fists turning into metal. No matter how strong your devil fruit is, it could never stand up to my Tetsu no Mi. Dos Fleur, Robin said, crossing her arms. Two arms sprouted on the bounty hunter's shoulders, grabbing his head. Clutch. Harden. The bounty hunter shouted, his head turning to iron. As his head and neck were made of metal, the hands had a harder time snapping the man's neck. The man chuckled as he raised his hands, crushing the hands on his shoulders, causing them to fade. What are you going to do now? Dos Fleur Dercy, a voice came from behind the bounty hunter and two more arms sprouted from the bounty hunter, but this time the arms were coated in a strange, dark metal. Clutch. The bounty hunter's eyes widened as the arms twisted his head. He grabbed the arms, desperately trying to pull them off him, but to no avail. With a sickening noise, the arms snapped his neck, causing the man to fall to the floor, dead. If you don't want to end up like him, I suggest you run, the voice said, addressing the lackeys of the man the mysterious woman had just killed. Fuck. Let's get out of here. One of the bounty hunters shouted. It wasn't long before all of the bounty hunters fled the scene, revealing a hooded woman being the only one not to flee. Who are you? Robin didn't uncross her arms, as she was still wary. Sure, this mysterious woman had just saved her life, but the possibility of this woman scaring them off to take Robin's bounty for herself wasn't out of the picture. Nico Robin, the woman took off her head to reveal an eerily familiar face. The woman looked just like her, except the face was more developed. Her hair was curled and her sunglasses rested on her forehead. I'm not your enemy. I've been looking for you. You look just like me. Robin uncrossed her arms, taking a step back. Are you another survivor? In a sense, the woman chuckled to herself. Call me Nico Iris. What do you want with me? Robin was happy that she wasn't alone, but for all she knew, this person could be lying about her identity. The revolutionaries are looking for you, Iris replied. They want to protect you from the world government. Robin paused. That did make sense. Since she could read the poneglyphs, she was a valuable asset to the revolutionaries and a huge threat to the world government. Iris turned to an apple tree not far from her and picked an odd-looking fruit out of it. Robin reasoned that it was the devil fruit of the man that Iris killed. What do you need that for? Robin asked. Iris seemingly already had a devil fruit, one very similar to hers, so why did she need to collect another one? A peace offering, Iris said, looking in the direction opposite to Robin. Robin followed her eyes to see another cloaked figure approaching them. Robin recoiled in shock when the figure removed her hood to reveal none other than her mother, Nico Alvia. Alvia, Robin exclaimed. How did you survive? That's not Alvia, Iris said, narrowing her eyes. I know of the Inu no Mi. Reveal yourself. Impressive, Alvia said as her features started to change, revealing a woman with dark green hair and brown eyes. No one has ever found me out before. You're not Katarina Devon, Iris said in an aggressive tone. Robin saw Iris cross her arms similarly to her when she was going to use her devil fruit. Who are you? Katarina Devon, can't say I've heard the name. My name is Monkey D. Lily, the woman replied, and I'm a part of the revolutionaries. Monkey D. Lily. Iris lowered her arms. Could it be? Nico Robin, I've come to take you with to the revolutionaries, Lily said. Nico Iris, yes. I overheard your conversation. You can come with us as well. We will verify your identity when we arrive. I was intending on going there myself anyways, Iris replied truthfully. She needed to get a gauge of this Lily person. Since she was never around back in her dimension, she was extremely curious about Lily. She could potentially be a useful asset. Iris always had a plan to tell someone about her situation. She considered telling Koala, since Iris learned that the girl could keep a secret throughout the years, but Lily might be a better idea. Perfect, Lily said, turning around. Follow me. The trip was rather uneventful, even if it took a couple weeks. On an unknown island, Lily, Robin, and Iris docked their ship. Iris was all too familiar with this island, as she had spent a lot of time there when she was helping Dragon, Sabo, and Luffy plan their attack against the world government. She and Robin followed Lily silently through the many halls. Over the past couple weeks, Iris had deduced that Lily was a trustworthy person. She was extremely mature, unlike her son. Iris realized that they had a lot in common. Lily was quite a bookworm and was a very sly person. Unfortunately, her son didn't carry any of her better traits. Lily opened a door to reveal the person Iris had been itching to talk to for a while, Monkey D. Dragon. I'm back, honey, Lily smiled softly at Dragon, who gave her his signature smirk. Great job dear, Dragon said in a deep voice, turning his head to Robin and Iris. I see you've brought Nico Robin, but who is this? My name is Nico Iris, Iris introduced herself. I'm another survivor of Ohara who managed to stay under the radar by escaping to Sky Island. I received word from my informant that you were looking for Nico Robin, so I decided to come down to see if I can help as well as seek asylum in the Blue Sea. I see, Dragon stared deep into Iris's eyes. Dragon was always an excellent judge of character. Sometimes, Iris wondered if he could listen into the voice. That is sufficient. Lily, can you show them to their quarters? Of course, Lily turned to the two women. Follow me. Thank you, Monkey-san, Robin said as Lily led her to her quarters. You're welcome, Lily smiled at Robin. She was happy that Robin and Iris were people that she could relate to, as her husband was a complete musclehead. Please, call my Lily. I think we've been acquainted long enough for you to call me by my name. Of course, Lily, Robin offered a smile. Lily knew the smile wasn't genuine, as Robin was still wary, but she let it slide. She wanted to show Robin that they trusted her and wanted the best for her. Now, your quarters are next door, Iris. Follow me, Lily said, walking out with Iris, leaving Robin alone. While Dragon specialized in Conqueror's Hockey, Lily specialized in observation. Despite that, she couldn't get a gauge of Iris at all. She was a complete enigma. She was able to get pieces of her personality, but if Robin was an open book, Iris was a poneglyph. She opened the door to Iris's quarters. This is where you will be staying for the time being. Lily-san, Iris said as Lily turned to leave, causing her to turn and look at the woman. May I speak to you for a second? Of course, Lily said. Usually, when Iris wanted to talk, they usually entered a deep conversation about books and stories from around the world, which Lily greatly enjoyed. What would you like to talk about? Do you happen to have a son named Monkey D. Luffy? Lily immediately recoiled when Iris said the name of her only son. Motherly instincts kicked in, her arms coated with armament hockey. Why would this person who she has never met know about her 9-year-old son? She hasn't even seen him since he was around 2 years old, when she and Dragon gave him to Garp. Giving away her son was one of the hardest decisions she has had to make and would have probably taken it back if she had the choice. How do you know about my son? Lily growled, ready to pounce at any moment. I've known a man named Monkey D. Luffy for over 12 years now, Iris smiled as she sat down on the bed. Lily turned her head in confusion. Luffy was only 9 years old. How could Iris know Luffy for 12 years? We've been talking about stories for a while now and I think it's time you listen to mine. Let me tell you the tale of the man who became the Pirate King. Lily sat in awe as Iris told her story. Apparently, she was Nico Robin from another dimension. A dimension where her son set sail, teamed up with her husband to take down the world government, and eventually became the Pirate King. Even if she wasn't around for it, she couldn't help but feel proud for her son. One thing you must not do is tell Dragon, Iris said. Why not? Lily asked. If Iris had the knowledge, she claimed that she did, then she would be an invaluable resource in the upcoming war with the world government. Plus, she wanted to brag to her husband that their son became the Pirate King. That information is something Luffy himself must tell Dragon, Iris replied. I don't think it would be fair for him if either of us told him the truth. Luffy came with you too? Lily asked, shocked. Where is he? We need to go see him immediately. You will meet soon, Iris promised. He is currently on Dawn Island. I know Dragon is going there to intercept a world noble in a few months' time. It is imperative that we arrive there when we do. I understand, Lily nodded. She wouldn't lie and say she completely believed Iris's story, but she would soon confirm it with her own eyes when she went to Dawn Island herself. Thank you for trusting me, Iris. It's my pleasure, Iris smiled. I'm just happy to get to know the mother of my captain. Hawks heaved a sigh. Ace still refused to acknowledge Luffy and he was at a loss as to what to do. Ah! Luffy's shout caught Hawks' attention. The man turned to see Luffy accidentally light a plant of fire. Things would have been easier if he just got my fruit like normal, Hawks thought to himself as he put out the small fire with his fingers. Thanks, mister. Luffy chirped, smiling brightly at his future self. What's for lunch? Hawks turned to see a boar grazing casually. I guess we're going to be having pork, Hawks said as he grabbed a rock, throwing it at the boar. It landed on the boar's back, causing it to turn to Hawks and charge. Hawks smirked as they got into a fighting stance. He didn't even have to use hockey to kill it with one punch. Ah, it doesn't hurt to get some exercise every now and then. You. Hawks turned to see Ace jump out of the bushes. Ace, are you sure this is a good idea? Sabo inched out of the bushes. No, but I need to know how he did that so easily. Ace shouted at Sabo before turning back to Hawks. How did you do it? Hawks smirked. This was his opportunity. Come have lunch with us and I'll train you. Chapter 06, Flames of Passion. Kuina didn't know whether to be excited or scared. Today was her first day under the tutelage of her new sensei, Asura. He was able to defeat her father without breaking a sweat. That wasn't what scared her, though. Someone like you is unworthy of wielding such a blade. Asura's words rang in Kuina's head as he killed the bandit that killed her childhood friend. What if Asura deemed her unworthy of Wado? It wasn't like her father could do anything about it if he did. They both knew Asura was a superior swordsman. Kuina's train of thought was cut by a knock on her door. Meet me outside in 5, Asura's deep, gruff voice said through the door. Bring your sword. Kuina sighed as she got out of bed, grabbing her prized sword, the Wado Ikimanji. There was only one way to find out. Kuina walked out to find Asura staring off into space, his back facing Kuina. I heard you want to become the best swordsman in the world, Asura said, not caring to look at Kuina. You bet I will, Kuina shouted. She had to become the best swordsman. For her, for Zoro. Unsheath your sword, Asura said, turning around to face the girl, his arms crossed. Kuina complied, unsheathing her sword. Now attack me, Asura commanded. As he uncrossed his arms, he revealed a tiny pocket knife in his hand. Are you underestimating me? Kuina demanded. She knew Asura was a powerful swordsman, but using a poorly forged knife was nothing but an insult. In response, Asura casually swung the knife to his side. To Kuina's complete shock, the slash was able to create a giant slash in the ground that traveled a few feet until it cut a nearby tree cleanly in half. Anything can be a weapon, Asura stated simply. Never underestimate your opponent. Kuina shook her head, trying to shake off the shock she was feeling. She hardened herself. If she wanted to become stronger, she needed to learn the secrets of his techniques. She dashed at him, swinging her sword with all her might. With a flick of his wrist, Asura deflected her blade, causing her to stagger back. It took her about a second to recover as she didn't expect the amount of force to come from the knife. She reassumed a battle stance, her eyes flashing with determination. You need to recover quicker, Asura said simply. If this were a real battle, you would have been dead by now. Hi, sensei. Kuina shouted before dashing at Asura again, this time dashing around him, aiming a slash for the back of his neck. Without taking a step or turning around, Asura easily deflected the attack. Kuina jumped back, remaining on guard. Not bad, Asura said without moving. Don't stop attacking. Try to make me take a step. After a couple hours, Kuina was sitting on the floor, panting. Asura hadn't moved an inch, his arms crossed. You lasted longer than I expected, Asura said. Thank you, sensei, Kuina said. Though she couldn't make him move, Kuina couldn't help but feel a little annoyed that Asura only used a pocket knife. Have you met the best swordsman in the world? Asura asked. Kuina shook her head. I have not, sensei, Kuina said. She wondered what type of man the best swordsman in the world was. I have, Asura said, piquing Kuina's interest. What was he like? Kuina asked. Asura took a step for the first time in a couple hours to walk over to the stack of many swords that Asura had brought with him when he moved in. Asura grabbed the biggest one, a cross-shaped sword that was easily taller than the man. He unsheathed it to reveal a beautiful black blade. This is a replica of his sword, Asura said, gently placing down the sheath before walking over to Kuina, placing the sword down in front of the girl. Try to pick it up. Kuina silently stood up, marveling at the sword's beauty. It was unlike anything she's ever seen before. She crouched, grabbing the giant hilt with both hands and pulled. When the sword didn't budge, she tried using all of her strength to pull it up. The sword didn't even show signs of moving. Kuina eventually gave up and sat back down, panting as if she just spent another hour training with Asura. The world's best swordsman could use this sword to cut a mountain in half with one hand, Asura said, picking up the sword and sheathing it again. He could take on entire armies single-handedly. Do you think you can stand up to that? No, Kuina shook her head, answering honestly. But one day, I will. Just you watch. It doesn't matter if I'm a girl. I will beat him and become the world's best swordsman. Kuina expected Asura to frown at her and tell her that something like that would be impossible, but she was pleasantly surprised. That's the spirit, Asura said, smirking. Now get some water. Don't expect me to go easy on you. Hey old man, Sanji called as he barged into a room. The man, Soren Prince, was holding a paintbrush and painting some sort of clothing. What are you doing? Oh, some redesigning, Prince sighed. The sooner I wipe myself clean of this damn family, the better. Sanji stiffened at the mention of family as the abuse from Germa 66 was still fresh in his mind. Why, you had a bad family too? Yeah, they kicked the shit out of me when I was a kid, Prince chuckled dryly, taking a drag from his cigarette before dabbing the paintbrush on the red paint. They finally started to respect me after they used me as a pawn and I ended up saving their ass from a trap. Sanji didn't say anything, letting the mood go awkward. It wasn't that he didn't want to talk to Prince, but family was still a touchy subject for him. And done, Sanju exclaimed. He pressed a button on a cylinder and the clothing flew into the small container before Prince closed it. Such. We're under attack, a voice shouted from outside the room. Pirates. Sanji's eyes widened in shock and fear when he heard the last word. He looked towards Prince, who to Sanji's surprise, just sighed, taking another drag of his cigarette. I guess things won't the same as last time. Last time? Sanji asked, his voice full of panic. Did Prince know something he didn't? Prince just stood up and ruffled the kid's hair. Let's go, Prince said, grabbing a few cylindrical containers off his desk and putting it in a small sack before standing up. Don't worry, I'll keep you safe. Prince cracked his knuckles in excitement. He never got the chance to fight Zeph anywhere close to his prime except for that one time Zeph whooped his ass when he was a kid. Considering things were happening about a year earlier than his dimension, Zeph should be in his prime. Are you sure we'll be okay, old man? Sanji asked. Stop calling me old man. Prince rubbed the back of his head as they arrived in the ballroom of the cruise ship to see everyone on their knees with their heads down while pirates guarded them, smirking and chuckling as they held rifles and cutlasses. Hey, it seems like we missed a couple, a pirate said. He cockily walked over to Prince and Sanji. Hey kid, why don't you? Piss off, geezer. Sanji yelled, kicking the man square in the face, sending him sprawling. Not bad, Prince whistled. This version of Sanji might actually be stronger than he was when he was a kid. Prince rubbed his chin. You little, the pirate brandished his weapon. Just what the hell do you think you're doing? Prince smirked as he saw a familiar man walk up, a deep scowl on his face. Red leg Zeph, Prince chuckled slightly. Fancy seeing you here. You've heard of me. Zeph turned his gaze towards Prince, his expression unreadable. Yeah, Prince smirked. I think you would look a bit better if you had a 7-foot chef's hat on. That sounds terrible, Zeph growled. I've actually been looking for you, Prince admitted, taking a drag from his cigarette before tossing it on the floor and stomping on it. Why would someone on a cruise ship in the East Blue be looking for a pirate like me? Zeph narrowed his eyes. In response, Prince lifted his right knee and raised his hands up. A challenge. Since Zeph never reached the New World, he only knew the basics of hockey, but his specialization in observation hockey let him make a rough estimate of an opponent. The man before him was strong. How strong was something Zeph couldn't determine, but the idea of someone challenging him to a one-on-one fight made his blood boil. A challenge you say? Zeph asked, his lips curving upwards in a smirk. Interesting. What's your name? You may call me Soren Prince, the man replied, returning the smirk. A nice name, Zeph said. He took a step back, assuming a fighting position before leaping in the air, spinning and extending his leg towards his opponent. Then Prince did something Zeph didn't expect. His left leg turned, adjusting Prince's position as he extended his right leg upwards. Any normal leg would have snapped into an ungodly angle at the force of Zeph's kick, but to the chef's surprise, Prince managed to parry the attack without taking any damage. Prince added pressure to his kick, causing Zeph to spin the opposite direction. Zeph landed gracefully in a fighting stance, smirking. You're not bad, Prince said, cracking his knuckles. You don't fight with your hands? Zeph asked, curious on his fighting style. He knew why he fought with his legs, but he was curious on why someone else would. A hand is a chef's pride, Prince replied. Zeph's expression brightened. This man, Prince, he was just like him. Zeph has met many people in his journey, but this man. His eyes burned just like his. They burned with the flames of passion that Zeph had carried throughout his life. Well said, Zeph shouted, laughing joyously. The captain ignored his subordinates' wary gazes, as Zeph was known to be an overly grumpy and aggressive person and rarely lets out a laugh like he just did. He coated his legs with hockey. He didn't care if this Prince person didn't know hockey. Zeph wanted nothing more was to go all out and feel the thrill of battle. Show me the fire that burns in your heart. Diable Hambi, Prince shouted. Zeph recoiled in shock when a ring of fire surrounded the man as he raised his leg, the limb turning a deep shade of purple. The kid behind Prince stared at the man in awe as the fire started to constrict towards the man until it traveled up his leg, causing his leg to burst into a blazing inferno. Satisfied. Soren Prince, I have never met a man like you in all my life, Zeph smiled. He accepted that Prince was far out of his league. If he was going to go down, he was going to go out in a blaze of glory. Literally. It has been an honor to fight you. Likewise, Red Leg Zeph, Prince replied. Let's finish this. As the two prepared for one final clash, the ship lurched, causing everyone to stumble. What's happening? A storm, Prince replied, lighting another cigarette before taking a drag. The ship suddenly split apart below the kid. Old man, the kid shouted as he fell into the sea. Sanji, Prince shouted, instantaneously jumping into the after the boy. Zeph took a step. What am I doing? He asked himself as he took another step. Stop. He tried to stop himself, but he couldn't. He respected this Soren prince. He even looked up to him to an extent. The amount of passion one must have to have it manifest physically into a fire. Zeph took another step. For someone like Prince to throw away his life for a kid, he must be special. Zeph chastised himself for the decision he was about to make, but his gut roared for him to do it. Captain, one of his pirates shouted as he jumped into the sea after Prince. Little did Zeph know, this would be one of the most important decisions he would ever make. Disclaimer: this story do not belong to me. The author is, a new adventure by kfpisnotacult. Chapter 07, The King of Snipers. Ah, we're coming up on Thriller Bark, Bones said as he turned his skull into the distance to face a gigantic ship. What do you want to do after we get my shadow back? Brook asked. I want to go to Water 7 and meet up with Frankie to get a ship and then spend the next 8 years traveling and gathering funds, Bones said. How would 2 skeletons get a bunch of money? Brook asked, tilting his head in confusion. Soon you will learn the power of music, Bones smiled nostalgically, remembering his brief stint as the Soul King. For now, I want to get your shadow and Shisui. I'm sure Zoro will be really happy once we get this for his younger half. Where are we headed next, Captain? Yasop walked up to stand next to Skanks, who was staring off into the horizon from the deck of the ship. You know that Hawk's guy told me something that might interest you, Shanks said, smirking at his sniper. What did he say? Yasop asked. To be honest, the guy was kind of weird. This may just be a hunch, but I heard that there was an upstart in the Gecko Islands. Some crazy good marksman who uses a slingshot. Calls himself the king of snipers, Shanks quotes. That's what he said. Huh, Yasop rubbed his chin before grabbing one of his pistols, twirling it in his fingers. Well, I've never been one to turn down a challenge. Plus, it would be nice to see Banchina again. I'm excited to see how much my little squirt has grown up. Oh, I think you'll be surprised. Shanks took out his aged straw hat and put it on his head. Didn't you just give your hat to Luffy? Why did you get another one? Yasop looked at his captain with a confused expression. Hawks was so kind as to give me his hat, Shanks smiled wistfully at the sea. I have a feeling you'll find out as to why in due time. Cryptic as always, huh Captain? Yasop sighed, slipping the pistol back in his holster before turning around. Tell me when we get there, okay. Sogeking sat cross-legged on a hill, closing his eyes. Even though back in his dimension, he was one of the most prominent users of observation haki to ever live, he still liked to keep his abilities sharp. After all, he couldn't get complacent now that he was a brave warrior of the sea. As he let his senses reach out, several powerful signatures caught on his radar. It didn't take long for Sogeking to recognize who they were. Red hair, Sogeking thought excitedly. He then recognized Usopp's signature and instantly grimaced. Sogeking wanted to deck the man as soon as he docked, but he shouldn't take out his anger for his Yasop on this Yasop. I still haven't forgiven you for dying on me, you know. Sogeking muttered to himself. After a few minutes of grappling with his emotions, Sogeking decided that he would deck Yasop for leaving his son alone. Sogeking remembered how hard it was to keep the smile on his face at times, especially after his mother died. Hey Sogeking. Sogeking turned his head to see a gleeful Usopp running up to him. Usopp admired his future self, which was practically inevitable. Sogeking was the king of snipers after all. Guess what? What's up, Squirt? Sogeking said with a smirk on his face as he stood up. When Usopp ran up to him, Sogeking shoved a hand on the boy's head, ruffling his hair. My dad's going to be coming today. Usopp cheered. He's going to take us out to see where we can become brave warriors. I'm already a brave warrior of the sea, Runt, Sogeking said, stifling a chuckle. His expression softened when he looked at the kid's smile. He recognized it all too well. Sogeking hated that smile. That fake smile that he used to put on when he wasn't okay. When he would tell a lie. Now, his smiles had become pure and genuine. I promise that you can smile like me one day, Sogeking thought to himself as he looked at Usopp fondly. You know what? That would sound great. I would love to explore the open sea once more. He turned his head as the powerful oars rapidly approached. Hey kid, I need to prepare for when I meet your old man, alright? I'll be out for a few hours. Alright, Usopp chirped, looking up at his idol with shining eyes. I can't wait to tell him all the stories that you've told me. You are quite the storyteller, Sogeking admitted honestly. Don't make me sound bad, alright? Usopp spent the next couple hours running around, pranking the village folk. Occasionally, he went back to the hill where Sogeking often sat. Whenever Usopp asked Sogeking what he would do there, Sogeking would tell him that he was practicing his super awesome magic sniper powers. Usopp believed the man. Sogeking had no reason to lie. Of course, a badass like that would have super awesome magic sniper powers. As he ran up the hill, his face paled when he looked out at sea. He saw one of the many few things that pierced his heart in fear: pirates. Pirates! Usopp shouted out of instinct. He ran to the town to warn everyone. As he ran towards the town, a scary thought crept into his head and down his spine. Where was Sogeking? Pirates were attacking and no one knew where he was. A bead of sweat formed on Usopp's forehead. Sure, Sogeking was a certified badass, but could he hold himself against pirates? Usopp turned around and ran. He needed to find his role model before he got himself killed. We're here, Shanks shouted, causing Usopp to jump out of bed, his blood boiling. He was excited to meet this so-called king of snipers along with his kid again. He wondered if the two got along. He was sure Banchina wouldn't allow such a bad influence on Usopp to hang around, though. It really depended on the man's character. As he stepped out on the deck, he saw a single man waiting to confront the pirates on the shore. He had no shirt and brown shorts. His hair puffed out on the back of his head as he wore a hat to cover it. He carried a small pouch over his shoulder and had goggles around his neck. Usopp and I will go down first, Shanks said, hiding his straw hat. Usopp gave his captain a confused look. Back when he had his old straw hat, he never hid it. Why would he take it off now? He shook his head. Even after all these years, Shanks was still completely unreadable at times. Shanks and Usopp hopped off the ship to confront the man. Hello, my name is Shanks and this is Usopp, Shanks introduced the two with a wide grin on his face. Usopp resisted the urge to facepalm. Shanks didn't know the meaning of subtlety sometimes. He then turned to the man who was confronting them, who didn't move an inch, save for his scowl deepening. We're looking for a man who calls himself so. Shanks was cut off when the man dashed towards Usopp. Faster than Usopp could react, he saw the man's arm coated with hockey right before his fist collided with his face, sending him sprawling into the ocean. The red hair pirates brandished their weapons, preparing to attack, but were stopped when Shanks gave them his signature glare, letting out a bit of conqueror's hockey as he did. Geez, what the hell was that for? Usopp grumbled as he got up, wiping the blood from his nose. That, the man said, letting the hockey fade from his arm, was for abandoning Usopp. You know Usopp. Usopp's eyes widened in shock before a wide grin spread across his face. Tell me, how is he? How is he? The man echoed. Usopp's smile faded as he realized that his words only made the man angrier. The man stomped up to Usopp and lifted him up by his shirt. Usopp gazed into the man's eyes. His eyes burned with anger, but not hatred. His eyes reminded Usopp of Banchina's eyes when he decided to leave. How is he? He's been lying to himself every day, saying that you would pick him up and whisk him away from this island. He told his mother the same lie every single day. Even now he's telling himself that because his mother is dead. Banchina's dead. Usopp's expression changed multiple times as the man shouted at him, but his face finally settled to an expression of pure shock. She died from an illness 2 years ago, the man replied, letting Usopp down. The man's expression softened as he saw Usopp's face contorted with pain and grief. You're all he has left. What's your name? Usopp managed. In his whirlwind of thoughts, he couldn't come up with any other question. My name, the man paused for a second. My name is Usopp, but you can call me Sogeking. Sogeking, a sad smile crept up Usopp's face as he held out his hand. He knew he screwed up and he wanted to make things work out better from here. Thank you for taking care of my kid. Sogeking. Usopp ran through the woods, shouting at the top of his lungs. He had been looking for about 15 minutes now and he was deathly afraid that something happened to him. He burst out of the forest to see a large pirate ship. He looked down to the shore to see a man with red hair, Sogeking, and, was that who he thought he was? Usopp's face immediately brightened. Dad. Usopp ran down the shore, stumbling over his feet before tackling his dad into a hug. Usopp, is that you? Usopp exclaimed in shock before laughing joyously. Usopp was too excited to notice the tears fall from Usopp's face. You've grown so big. Yeah, I'm gonna grow up to be a brave warrior of the sea just like you. Usopp cheered. So, you're Usopp's kid, huh? Usopp turned to the red-haired man who looked down at him with a huge smirk on his face. I'm Usopp's captain. Name's Shanks. Let's go to the Meshi place, Usopp said. I want to know all about you, Sogeking. And then I met a man named Heracles. Sogeking exclaimed. We fought and survived in a land filled with giant bugs for 2 whole years. Whoa. Usopp heard the story of Greenstone and the gigantic bugs dozens of times but enjoyed it every single time. Sogeking. Usopp shouted. I challenge you to a duel. Wah, Usopp started. I accept. Sogeking shouted as he took out a slingshot colored deep purple. You're going to take me on with a slingshot. Usopp laughed. Of course. Sogeking gave Usopp a cocky smile. Don't think you can beat me with my partner by my side. Alright, let's do this, Shanks said. The 2 snipers faced their back to each other and took 10 paces each. We will start this with a flash of haki. As soon as Sogeking felt the flash of haki come from Shanks, time slowed. As he turned, a bullet was already sent his way. He didn't even need to peer into the future. He knew his dad's style too well. He tilted his head, narrowly dodging the bullet aimed for his head. He pulled back his slingshot as his eyes tracked another bullet heading his way. When he fired, 2 pellets flew out. One of the pellets hit the bullet, causing both of them to veer to the side. Usopp's eyes widened as he added haki to his head just in time for the second pellet right between the eyes, causing him to lurch back. Ha! I win. Sogeking cheered. Not bad, Usopp smirked as he got up. Congratulations, Sogeking. Sogeking's eyes widened as he saw the aged straw hat on Shanks's head. You met the captain, Sogeking shouted. What, that Hawks dude is your captain? Usopp asked. How could a weirdo like him captain someone so skilled? You should probably tell him, Sogeking stiffened at Shanks's words. I'll take care of the squirt. It makes sense that he told you, Sogeking sighed, wrapping an arm around Usopp's shoulder. Come with me. Let me tell you a real story. As the 2 men walked away, Shanks turned towards Usopp, kneeling down one knee so he could match the kid's height. I heard you want to come with your pops and I. Yep, Usopp cheered. I want to become a great warrior of the sea. You're not old enough to come with us yet, Shanks said bluntly, causing Usopp to look downwards. Shanks smiled softly at the boy. In a few years, a captain of your own will show up. Soon, you and Sogeking will go on your own adventure and become the bravest warriors of the sea. You really think so? Usopp looked up at Shanks. Of course, Shanks laughed joyously. Your pops and I will be waiting on the other side and that's a promise. Usopp stared at the ground, processing that Sogeking, no, Usopp just told him. He instantly understood Sogeking's reaction when he first laid eyes on the man. He then looked up at Sogeking. A million things swirled through his head, but Usopp knew what to say. He knew what he felt. Son, I'm proud of you. Sogeking smiled. I know. Are you really going so soon? Usopp looked devastated at the notion that Shanks and Usopp were leaving so soon. We have to keep peace in the Grand Line, Shanks said. We'll see each other again once you're stronger. Sogeking here will train you to become everything you need to be. That's right, Runt, Sogeking ruffled the boy's hair. You should stop by Thriller Bark next. I'm not sure if they'll still be there by the time you get there, but I'm sure Brook would need a lift once he gets his shadow back. What are you talking about? Usopp asked. My skeleton buddy might need a little help, Sogeking replied with a smile. Oh, I love Skeleton Buddy. Usopp exclaimed. Yo-ho-ho-ho. Sogeking smiled at Usopp's attempt to imitate Brook's laughter. I'll be sure to stop by on my way back to the New World, Shanks said. We'll meet again. Sogeking smiled as the 2 boarded the ship again. That we will. As the ship sailed off, Usopp turned to Sogeking. What are we going to do now? Train, of course, Sogeking replied, a smirk on his face. My captain will be arriving in 8 years and I want to be able to show you off. Alright. Usopp jumped in the air, shooting his fist off. I'm going to be the bravest warrior the sea has ever seen. Chapter 08, Chilled to the Bone. Ow. Luffy exclaimed as Ace hit him over the head with a stick. See, I told you training would be fun, Hawk said as he hit Sabo with his own stick. Ow. Sabo exclaimed as he grabbed his head, tearing off his blindfold. What even is the point of this? I don't know, Ace twirled the stick in his hand. I kinda like this. Here, give me the blindfold, Hawk said. Sabo offered him the blindfold as Luffy took his off. Hawks tied the blindfold over his eyes and sat down. All 3 of you try to hit me. Finally, Hawks heard Sabo exclaim as he sensed him grab a stick. Here's revenge for hitting me over and over. As the 3 started swinging wildly at Hawks, the man just calmly moved his head, weaving through the sticks that were aiming for his head. What the hell, old man? Ace shouted. What the hell are you doing? Hawks jumped up from his sitting position, landing behind the 3 kids and hitting them each on the head respectively. That was observation hockey, Hawks said, taking off the blindfold, and this is what I want to teach you. Gigantsto mano. Robin shouted as she crossed her arms. Several hands sprouted from the ground, weaving together until they formed 2 arms that were slightly taller than Robin. Robin strained to keep the arms active, but eventually uncrossed her arms, flopping on her back as the arms retreated back into the ground. This is a lot harder than I expected, Robin panted as Iris walked up to her and smiled down at her. You're doing very well, Iris said, offering Robin a hand. I'm surprised you've gotten this far in only a couple of weeks. Thank you, Iris, Robin smiled back at the woman as she took her hand, hoisting herself up. Though Robin was wary of Iris at first, she realized they had a lot in common. Robin genuinely believed that Iris was a survivor of Ohara. Iris claimed to be exploring the Grand Line when Ohara was destroyed and Robin wholeheartedly believed her. She read Iris's journals about her journeys to Sky Island and Thriller Bark and they captivated her more than any novel could. Iris also claimed to have read the poneglyphs, but Robin wasn't too sure about the validity of that. Whenever Robin asked about them, Iris would just smile and tell her she wouldn't want to ruin the fun. Iris. Lily barged into the room, an excited smile on her face. I have great news. What is it? Iris asked, a patient smile on her face. Dragon said we're going to be going to Dawn Island in 2 months' time. Lily exclaimed. I'm so excited to see him. What's at Dawn Island? Robin asked. From what I remember, it's in the East Blue, right? My son is currently living in Dawn Island, Lily explained. I really want to see him again. You have a son? Robin's eyes shined with interest. I wonder what he's like. Is it possible for me to go as well? Of course. Lily's smile only widened. The more people I can introduce my son to, the better. Robin turned to Iris, who had a knowing smile on her face. Robin narrowed her eyes slightly. Robin remembered that smile. It was the exact same smile Iris gave Robin when they first met. I can't fucking believe we got stranded in the middle of nowhere. Zeph shouted. Pipe down, old man, Prince said, lighting a cigarette. How were you even able to get dry cigarettes? Zeph asked. Magic, Prince took a drag of his cigarette, giving Zeph jazz hands. What are we going to do? Sanji asked, his eyes wild with panic and fear. There's not much we can do, Prince said with a serious expression on his face. Welcome to the real world, Sanji. Sanji stiffened, as Prince almost never used his name. I want to train you, Prince said, causing a shiver to go down his spine. Sanji imagined the hellish training that Prince had to go through to literally let his leg catch fire at will and wondered if Prince would make Sanji do the same training. The fear quickly drained from his face. He remembered the abuse he went through at the hands of the Vinsmoke. He never wanted to be bullied again. More importantly, if he wanted to find the All Blue, he needed to be strong. Alright, Sanji said, his previous panic being completely replaced by determination. What do I do? Lammy. Lammy heard Belmare's voice come from outside her house. Lammy walked up to the door and opened it, a welcome smile on her face. May I come in? What's up, Belmere? Lammy asked in a casual tone as she moved aside to let her adoptive mother in. Lammy was still getting used to Belmere still being alive and Arlong being arrested. Since Belmere was the one to turn him in, she was still under the world government's radar. I wanted to ask you a favor, Belmere said as she sat down on one of Lammy's couches. Of course, Lammy said as she sat down on a chair. What is it that you need? Can you teach Nami and Nojiko how to fight? Belmare's question took Nami aback. She was going to train them regardless, but she didn't expect Belmere to ask Lammy herself. What? Lammy sat and stared at Belmere, completely dumbfounded. Nami is very free-spirited, Belmere started. I imagine she wouldn't want to stay here when she grows up. The world is a cruel place. I know firsthand. I want her to be able to fend for herself out there. Also, there isn't anything saying that another Arlong might come along. We can't always be there to protect them, so I want them to learn how to fight on their own. After a couple seconds of silence, a huge grin broke out on Lammy's face. Of course I will. So, where is this Ryuma guy? Brook asked as he sliced through another zombie. He should be around here somewhere, Bones replied as he swung his black sword, slicing a zombie in half with ease. After Wano, he was gifted a skillful grade sword named Kota Jigoku, Frozen Hell. After infusing the blade with his haki and his soul with the help of his devil fruit constantly for 10 years, Kota became a Kokuto, raising its rank to a great grade sword. An eerie voice caused Brook to jump, but Bones just turned to the zombie. I can sense your warrior's soul. Wait, This isn't like the Ryuma I remember, Bones thought. If his face could pale, then he would have gone as white as a sheet. He realized that there was a chance that the cage no mi let the bodies have their original souls in this dimension. According to the tales, Bones deduced that the only person he knew that could stand up to the Ryuma of legends was Zoro in his absolute peak. He didn't understand how it worked, but even though he had traversed the Grand Line longer than any being alive in his previous dimension, he couldn't really grasp many concepts that existed in the Grand Line. I am honored by your words, Bones said respectfully. Brook did a double take when Bones addressed the zombie in a formal manner. I would love to duel you at the peak of my strength, but this body is long past its prime, Ryuma said. I can only access about a quarter of my power. I hope this is satisfactory for you. It is an honor to even duel the king himself, Bones said, readying his blade. The king, huh? Ryuma unsheathed Shisui, grasping the blade with both of his hands. I never got to fight him. It's a shame. He would have been a grand opponent. Brook, cover me, Bones said, his tone deathly serious. See what I did there? Do not interfere with this match. All right, Brook nodded. He didn't understand why Bones was treating a zombie with such respect, but Brook knew he had his reasons. He turned to face another zombie. Bones and Ryuma charged at each other. As the two clashed, the ground started to freeze around him. In the final battle with Blackbeard, each main crew member had to take on one of the 10 Titanic captains after Doc Q and Katarina Devon were taken out by Marco and Sabo. Kuzan rose up to replace one of the fallen captains to fight Bones. Although Bones almost died, his soul solid technique improved greatly. Since Luffy became the Pirate King, Bones had spent more time refining his ice. I see you are able to manifest your soul into combat, Ryuma said as the two jumped back. As Ryuma prepared to strike again, blue flames erupted from around him. Bones tensed as the air around him grew colder. An ice sculpture started to form next to him as the air started to freeze until it was a complete replica of Brook. Soul split, Bones shouted. As he exhaled, a piece of his soul escaped his body and entered the sculpture. The sculpture then started to move as it entered its own fighting stance. Prepare to get double the cold shoulder. Yo-ho-ho-ho. Both Bones exclaimed as they dashed towards Ryuma. Bones could tell that Ryuma wasn't well acquainted with fencing as the two executed a highly synergized flurry of stabs and strikes, but Ryuma was adjusting to it well, the ice in the ground melting around him. Impressive, Ryuma says as he stabs the ice sculpture, melting it. Bones took a step back, his expression serious as the piece of his soul re-entered his body. I say we end this though. I agree, Bones replied as a cloud of mist escaped his jaw. Absolute zero. Kota started to radiate a green energy as the air froze around Brook. Bones noticed the aged arms of Ryuma turn a shade of black as he coated himself with armament hockey. Brook responded in kind, his bones becoming black and his sword started to tint blue. Good, Ryuma said as he dashed towards Bones. The two passed through each other, slicing at each other with their swords. The slashes carried out for several meters, cutting several buildings behind them. They stayed frozen for a few tense moments before Bones' head fell off and Ryuma fell to his knees, clutching a slash over his chest. What a fine duel, Ryuma managed as Bones picked up his head, reattaching it to his body. What is your name, warrior? Brook. Bones knelt down before Ryuma. My name is Brook. Well Brook, Ryuma coughed. I have one last request. What is it? Bones asked. Ryuma sheathed his sword and held it up to Bones, his arm shaking. I know you wouldn't use this sword, Ryuma said. I've learnt that much from our duel. My final request is for you to find a worthy master to my blade. Have him continue my legacy. It would be my honor. Bones sheathed his sword and carefully plucked Shisui with both of his hands. Thank you, Shimotsuki Ryuma. It was my pleasure, Brook, Ryuma managed as the shadow left his body, rejoining Brook once more. Bones looked on as Ryuma's body fell, once more becoming a lifeless corpse. I really became that strong. Brook walked over to look at the corpse of Ryuma before looking at Bones, who was standing next to him. It wasn't an easy journey, Bones replied before turning around. Let's go back to the ship. I'll teach you what I know. Brook looked at Bones as he walked off. Brook resisted the urge to make a skeleton pun. Though he always appreciated a good joke, he knew when or not it was an acceptable time to tell one. What the fuck do you want? Dr. Hirolik shouted. Usually, he wasn't like this, but he was suffering from a terrible hangover from self-testing one of his medicines, mixing multiple types of alcohol together and hoping for the best. As the knocking persisted, Hirolik sighed. I'm coming. He lumbered over to the door, leaning on the wall for support. He reached for the doorknob but stopped himself when he felt a growing pain in his throat. He coughed into his sleeve, scowling as he saw a few drops of blood sink itself into the fabric of his jacket. He then just sighed and opened the door. To his surprise, he saw no one there. He looked to his left and right. "All right, which one of you bastards thought of this? It isn't funny." "Actually, Doctor," Hiralik heard a small voice coming from below him. He looked down to see some kind of tanuki thing looking up at him with a serious expression. "I'm right here. Damn, the alcohol must have hit me hard, huh?" Hiralik rubbed his head. "Listen, raccoon dog or whatever the hell you are. I'm going to close my eyes and when I open them, you'll be gone. I'm real. And I'm a reindeer." The dog thing cried out. "Whatever you say, raccoon dog," Hiralik sighed. "What do you want?" "Ah, my name is Tony." The tanuki introduced himself. "I believe I have a cure for your disease." Chapter 09, 2 months later. "Morning, Hawks," Makino said as Hawks opened the door. "You didn't bring the kids with you today. Sometimes I swear she has observation hockey," Hawks thought to himself before he sat down. "I'll have some ale and meat please," Hawks replied with a strained smile. Hawks almost never used manners, but he respected Makino to a degree where he would put an effort. "I didn't want to bring the kids with me when I drank." "I thought you didn't drink," Makino tilted her head slightly. It was true that Hawks didn't drink a single drop of alcohol since he arrived at Dawn Island, so it was reasonable to assume such a thing. "I guess you could say I didn't sleep the best last night," Hawks said. He had been counting down the days since Sabo was supposed to grab a ship and try to sail off, only to get shot down by a world noble. Hawks sighed as he remembered Sabo crushing the world noble with his claws. He didn't want it to happen, but after agonizing over it for the past 2 months, he decided that it was best for him to go along with Dragon. His relationship with the man had improved greatly since their war against the world government. They never really got to become father and son, but they became great friends. Hawks and Dragon would often spar on Raftel throughout the 4 years after he became Pirate King, as it was the only place that could take the two titans clashing at full force. Hawks trusted Dragon to raise Sabo properly and reunite with him when he was older. "I can understand that," Makino sighed as she poured Hawks a keg. "I'll be back with your meat." "Thanks, Makino," Hawks said as Makino went off to the back of the restaurant. Hawks downed his ale as he heard the doors open. "Wah!" Hawks was taken aback by the aura coming from the person. He was surprised he didn't sense it until they entered the pub. Hawks turned around to see a woman that looked a bit like Makino, albeit a bit older and more mature. The lady sat down next to Hawks as the man returned to his ale. "Hello," the lady offered Hawks a sincere smile. "My name is Lily. What about you?" "Hawks," Hawks replied, giving Lily an indifferent smile. She wasn't being rude, so there was no reason for him to be. "What an interesting name," Lily commented. "It's nice to meet you, Hawks." "It's nice to meet you too," Hawks said. He considered questioning Lily on why someone so powerful would hang around in the East Blue, but since Shanks, Dragon, Garp, and even he spent time on this island, something like that wasn't exactly much of an oddity anymore. "Here's your meat, huh?" Makino cut herself off when she saw Lily. "Lily, what a pleasant surprise. It's been a while, Makino." Lily offered her a small smile as Makino placed the plate of meat in front of Hawks. "What brings you here this time?" Makino asked. "I'm only here on some business, unfortunately," Lily sighed. "I should really go, though. It would be troublesome if my husband knew I was gone." "I guess that would be," Makino sighed as Lily stood up. "I guess I'll see you. Hopefully we will meet again." Lily nodded to Makino before giving Hawks one last glance as she left. "Who was that?" Hawks asked as the door closed behind them. "An old friend," Makino said cryptically. Before Makino could elaborate, the doors burst open again revealing Luffy and Sabo. "Old man, Hawks," they shouted at the same time. Hawks turned around to see the two, confused Sabo was still here instead of being in the gray terminal. Just before the two kids opened their mouths, it hit him. Hawks' expression became grim. "Ace is gone. Slash. Damn it," Kuina shouted as she attacked Asura again. Asura sidestepped the attack and hit the back of her neck with the hilt of his sword. "Stupid puberty. If things keep going on like this, I'll never become the greatest swordsman." Kuina, the agitated tone of Kuina's mentor caused her to stiffen. "Yes, Senesi." Kuina turned around, her face contorting slightly in panic. "Sit down with me," Asura said as he sat down on the grass. Kuina nodded and sat down as well. "You seem to be distracted." "It's nothing," Kuina instantly said. Despite constantly cursing her body, Asura never commented on her complaints as if she had never said them. Was he really that dense? "Nothing at all. I know something has been off with you the past couple of weeks," Asura sighed, rubbing his head. "We need to resolve this issue, but I won't touch on it if you're not willing to say your grievances aloud." Fine, Kuina grumbled. Before this, she never had any type of attitude towards Asura, but her inner dilemma finally caused her to cave in. It's because I'm a woman. It's not fair. I won't be able to get stronger because of this stupid body. How am I going to become the greatest swordsman if my rival was a woman? Asura cut Kuina off, causing her to gape at him. After her father healed from his injuries, he was disgruntled at the fact that Asura was still holding back in his final attack. Kushiro said that Asura's swordsmanship even surpassed that of Kozaburo, the man that forged the Wado Ikimonji. How could the rival of such a man be a woman? Do you know what happened? Kuina shook her head. Her mind told her that Asura just left her in the dust from day one, but her heart told her Asura was trying to teach her something else. We dueled exactly 2001 times, Asura said. I didn't win a single match. Kuina gasped at Asura's words. For some reason, it reminded her of the relationship she had with Zoro. They had dueled 1998 times and Zoro had never won a single match before he died. It doesn't matter if you're a woman, Asura stated. Your skill will shine through if you work hard enough. Suddenly, Kuina felt a strange sensation. She couldn't determine what it was, but she knew she could feel it, and it was telling her to duck. Kuina leaned back just in time for Asura to swing his sword horizontally. Kuina's eyes followed the air slash that the slash produced until it sliced a tree in two. It took me 4 months under my sensei to get to the level you're at now, Asura said, standing up. Think about what I said. We'll resume training in a couple hours. Asura turned and walked away, leaving Kuina to blankly stare at the tree as it toppled over and fell. Slash. Sanji was at his limit. It had been 2 whole months without food and Zeph was hoarding all of it. Whenever he would talk to Prince about it, he would just take a drag from his cigarette and dismiss him. Now, he was going to take matters into his own hands. As he snuck behind a rock, he locked onto Zeph's bag. He leapt and cut the bag open with a shout. His eyes grew with excitement as the bag tore open, but the excitement quickly turned into despair when treasure fell out of the bag. There was never any food to begin with, kid, Zeph said, not even caring to turn around. If I told you that, I knew you wouldn't have accepted the food I gave you. What? Sanji gaped at the thin old man. Why was a pirate being so companionate towards him? Weren't all pirates supposed to be selfish and evil? You know what? Zeph declared. I'm going to survive this. I'm going to make a restaurant to feed anyone out at sea who is starving. Sanji looked at Zeph as he grabbed a rock with awe. His eyes steeled. Yeah, he shouted. He then noticed Zeph aim the rock towards his leg. Sanji's steeled look instantly faded as Zeph slammed the rock down to his leg, intending to take it off. Old man, I believe that's enough of that, Prince cut in, grabbing Zeph's arms. Prince was just as thin as all of them, but he never once complained or begged for food. He was adamant on Zeph and Sanji eating their share, saying that he survived worse. I have food. You have food, Sanji shouted. So, you were the one hoarding the food. I can't believe you. Listen kid, Prince's glare made Sanji stiffen. Prince raised his tattered shirt to reveal his ribcage. His state was just as bad, if not worse than Sanji and Zeph's. He walked over and knelt down to Sanji's level, his gaze boring into him. I would starve 1,000 times over if it meant you learned the value of food. As a chef, you must treat each ingredient as if it could save your life. I starved myself along with you and Zeph so you can learn that each ingredient can save your life. Sanji gulped as he stood up to face Zeph. He grabbed one of the weird cylinders from his pocket and opened the cap, revealing a pile of food resting atop a blanket. Congratulations on passing your training, Prince said, a weak smile on his face. Dig in. Slash. Asura walked down the streets, grumbling to himself. He didn't like bringing up his past rivalry with Kuina, but it had to be done. He looked for a bar to drink down his memories when he felt something bump into his knee. He looked down to see a familiar-looking girl with glasses holding a small book. I'm sorry Ms., the small Tashigi stopped herself when she saw the man's swords. Asura usually brought different blades with him every time he went out to fight. When he wasn't in a serious battle, he would make sure all of his swords got a good amount of bloodshed, as swords were forged as weapons as much as they were forged as works of art. Whoa, I've seen that blade before. She flipped through the pages before looking back and forth between it and Asura's swords. That's Enma, right? She asked with a starry expression in her eyes. That's a skillful grade blade. Good eye, kid, Asura smirked. Ever since the war against the world government, Tashigi had become much more of a friendly rival to Asura than an enemy. When the Marines were rebuilt, Tashigi became the equivalent of a real admiral and was in line to become an admiral when Asura left his dimension. Can I see it, please? Tashigi begged. Asura considered something. He knew Tashigi would become a great swordsman in the future, but what if he could give her a head start? Of course, he wouldn't teach her, as he already had a student that was taking up all of his time, but he had an idea. He grabbed one of the swords he had on him and handed it to Tashigi. "Here you go," Asura said with a kind smile on his face. Well, he tried to put on a kind smile, but it came off more as a cocky smirk than anything. "You can keep this. Its name is Cashew." "Really?" Tashigi gingerly took the sword from his hands before flipping through her book again. "This is another skillful grade blade. This is priceless. I don't have any money, so." Tashigi held the sword out to Asura, but he shook his head. "Some things never change. I don't need money," Asura said, putting a hand on Tashigi's head and ruffling her hair, much to her protest. "As payment for Cashew, promise me you'll become a great swordsman." "I'll become a great swordsman." "No, I'll become the best swordsman in the world," Tashigi declared, holding the sword up. "Just you watch me. The greatest swordsman in the world, huh?" Asura rubbed his chin. "That's a big dream you've got there." "I'll fulfill it," Tashigi said, the determination refusing to leave her voice. "I'll beat anyone that stands in my way. I'll look forward to it," Asura said as he turned to walk off. "Wait," Tashigi called, causing Asura to stop. "What's your name?" "My name." Asura turned his head so Tashigi could only see Asura's scarred eye and a smirk growing on his face. "Call me Asura." Luffy and Sabo arrived at the Great Terminal just in time to see it on fire. They had lost track of Hawks on the way there, but they hardly noticed. They arrived just in time to see Ace's ship get shot by a galleon. "Ace!" Luffy shouted, tears starting to form in his eyes as he watched his sworn brother desperately trying to fan out the flames. "Luffy!" Sabo called, but it was too late. Blue Jam walked up behind Luffy and grabbed him, putting a blade to his throat. "Where is the treasure?" Blue Jam demanded. "Tell me or I'll kill him." "No!" Sabo shouted, trying to free Luffy, but Blue Jam just kicked Sabo away. Since Luffy wasn't really able to move, he was forced to watch a second cannonball hit Ace's ship. "Ace!" Luffy shouted. Suddenly, a crushing force started to spread out from around Luffy, causing Blue Jam's crew to pass out. "Luffy!" Sabo shouted as Blue Jam fell back, unconscious. Sabo grabbed Luffy. "Ace!" Luffy managed, his tears flowing down his cheeks before his eyes rolled into his head and he passed out. "Where are you, ya stinking brats?" Sabo distantly heard Dayton's voice in the background. "Dayton!" Sabo cried, utterly helpless. He lost one brother and almost lost another brother in one day. He would cry, but he was too deep in shock at the events that just unfolded. Dragon immediately tensed as a man landed on his ship. Instantly, the revolutionaries surrounded the man. Everyone was tense, but no one drew any weapons. Dragon couldn't help but notice the man seemed familiar, but he couldn't exactly grasp what was familiar about him or where he met him. What shocked Dragon was the kid the man was carrying in his arms. A heavily injured Galdi. Ace was cradled in his arms. The man walked up to Dragon and held the child out to him. Something compelled Dragon to take the boy. "Raise him well," the man said, giving him a nod. Dragon didn't know the man, but he could tell he was strong. Even though he was suppressing his aura, it was still one of the stronger presences on the ship. One of his revolutionaries then walked up to the man and took off her hood, revealing Nico Iris, a rather new recruit. Despite that, she was already an invaluable asset, nearly doubling the size of the library and becoming one of Dragon's main sources of intel in such a short amount of time. "I hear you go by Hawks now, Captain," Iris said, smiling at the man. Dragon paused. This man was her captain. He's heard mentions of Iris as captain, but only that he was really strong and had a devil fruit. "That I do," the man, Hawks, replied. "What about you?" "Iris," the woman responded. "It suits you," Hawks said as he reached into his pocket. Dragon tensed, thinking that the man could bring out a weapon, but was surprised when he took out a devil fruit and placed it in Iris's hand. "Give it to him when he's ready." "Of course," Iris said before putting her hood back on and blending back in with the crowd. "Wait." As Hawks turned to leave, Dragon was surprised when his wife stopped the man. She walked up to him, her hood still on and out a hand on his shoulder. "I just want you to know I'm proud of you." "Proud?" Hawks tilted his head in a confused expression, which even Dragon found kind of goofy. "Who are you?" "You'll find out soon enough, but just know that I'm a friend," Lily said before blending back in with the crowd. "All right then, if you would excuse me," Hawks shot Dragon a glare. "I have 2 kids to take care of." With that, Hawks vanished without a sound or a trace, leaving a confused Dragon with a mortally wounded kid in his arms. "Damn, what am I going to do with this?"